I think most people don't visit your website. And like that feels bad for those of us who are in the business of creating these things. But the reality is like we just don't. Like we don't care.
Hey guys, my name is Pastor John Scott and I'm happy to be the youth director for Ontario Conference, but equally happy to be sitting down with one of my newest brothers in Christ. I call him Pastor Justin Khoe. He may say he's just Brother Justin Khoe. Doesn't matter to me. He's a minister online, and I'm really happy that he was with us this past weekend for Calibrate 2020. It was our youth ministries convention, and I'm happy to have this great conversation with him on this topic, this great topic of digital evangelism and reaching the young adults or younger generations for Christ using the various mediums in social media. So, take it away. How did you enjoy this weekend?
This weekend was incredible. It's always a good time to be able to come together to see young people worshiping. For sure, that's always a blessing. But then even beyond that, to be in a space where young people are excited about using their talents and their gifts for mission. Seeing them not only being the church of tomorrow, but being the church of today, I think is absolutely wonderful. And I know what it's like when I remember when I was a teenager, really just for the first time coming alive in the gospel and just feeling like man, I want to do something. But then also at the same time, while I had this inclination, feeling like there was a glass ceiling, that there weren't any opportunities, there wasn't a way for me to get involved. And so I admire and I respect what you and the team here at the conference are doing and just making a way. I think that this is just the beginning. I'm sure you have even broader and bigger plans for how you're going to get young people activated. But man, if this is just the beginning, I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, there are a lot of plans to be laid and to be announced as well. And we'll come to that, I'm sure.
Yeah, awesome, very good.
So tell me, digital evangelism as the major subject that you presented this weekend at Calibrate.
Yeah.
We had a lot of younger generations flooding your section. I mean, the energy was palpable. And I've been hearing some reports since then about what they've experienced. I wasn't, of course, able to sit down in any one of the sessions, but I did hear about some of what you had to say. And I really appreciate the experience of your past in terms of the trajectory of your experience leading you up to this point. How have you, in terms of the what God has done in your life between then and now, and what are you seeing in terms for the future for young adults to be able to do what you're doing currently with social media?
Yeah, you know what, I'd like to believe that I play a small role in this, because what I'm seeing is, whereas maybe a few years ago there was a hesitation for young people to just take initiative and just to get started, there definitely was a sense that, man, I want to do something, but I don't have a role. There's no space that's carved out for me. Right. And I think thanks to youth and young adult directors like yourself, and of course our senior administration who have noticed that this might have been a trend, have actively worked to empower young people. So I've been seeing this shift where when I first started, it felt like I might even get in trouble if I start something on my own that isn't sanctioned officially by my church or my pastor or my conference or fill in the blank. And I think now what we're seeing is a greater sense of ownership with young people saying, you know what? Even if I don't have an official role, I want to do something. Right. I want to get involved. I want to be a part of the mission and spreading the gospel. And what we're seeing by and large is young people saying, okay, I'm not going to wait. I'm just going to do it. I'm not going to wait till someone asks me. I'm going to just create something and go from there. And I believe God is going to use that. And I know that might feel uncomfortable if we're not used to seeing ministry done in this way, because, well, what if they mess up? And what if they mess up? That's a great question, but also what if they succeed?
Right.
And what if something amazing comes out of that? And so as much as it might be a little bit of a scary space, I think it's a great opportunity for mentors like yourself to take an active role and say, well, I love the vision that you've got. What would it look like if we partnered together, and how can we grow together? And so I think that's one of the major shifts that we've been seeing, even just in the last couple of years.
Right. When I speak to young adults, they tell me that the best thing for them, when we're promoting an event, they will say to me, flyers do not do it anymore.
Yeah.
If you give me a quick video, it works to great effect.
Yeah.
I mean, is there any place left for older ways of communicating, or is there a better way for new ways of communicating in terms of modern versus traditional?
Yeah.
Are there any ways that we could bring both together?
I think you can absolutely do both together. I think that becomes more expensive. My background, as you know, Pastor, has been in public evangelism. So I'm very familiar with the ideas of marketing a church event, especially an evangelistic series. I remember one series that I did in California. We physically handed out like 40,000 handbills in our neighborhood. Like we sent
You
a team
call
of
it handbills.
Yeah, or flyers or posters or whatever you call them. We literally went door to door in the entire neighborhood, put young people knocking on their door, handing out the flyer with a smiling face. And that was a lot of work, a lot of effort. And we were able to save a lot of money from what we would normally do in postage. And I think that that's cool and that's great. But even with all of that work, we only had, maybe a couple dozen visitors and a couple dozen guests. I'm grateful for those guests because I believe that many of their lives were impacted as a result of this. Now, fast forward nearly 10 years later, my home church in Oregon, where I'm a member of, we host a seminar in just the last couple of months, actually earlier last year.
Right.
And what had happened is we had a small budget for marketing, and we did the normal handbills and we passed them out at the local academy and, hey, friends, invite your friends, kind of a thing. But we had a budget of just a few $1,000s. I think it was something like in the realm of $3,000 that was spent on marketing online.
Wow.
And what had happened is we had an event that was 2 weekends, 1 week in the middle. So about 10 days. In the previous series that we did without that online marketing budget, we had an average attendance of right around 50 to 75 people. Church can hold a lot more than that, but that's what we had. And that was kind of consistent night after night after night.
Okay.
With just a small budget of around a couple $1,000s that was spent intelligently. Now, I'm not just saying just throw the money at Facebook and hope for the best, but we have a team of people in our local church that are marketing professionals that understand social media. We were able to spend this money, and on average, we had over 200 people attending our church.
Amazing.
Was that money well worth it? Well, I would like to think so. I think that when you combine or when you compare what we can do through social media advertising, especially if we're interested in reaching young people, there is no better way to spend money. I think that if we're simply creating physical handbills and we're mailing them, we will literally get further in today's climate if you just stand in front of the church and say, I'll give you $100 if you come in for this meeting.
Right.
It'll actually be cheaper and you'll get more people to show up. So short of doing that, I think social media is really the major way to reach the kinds of people that you're trying to reach.
Awesome. What kind of social media platforms are best suited for the different categories within younger generations? So we have young adults, within young adults, we have millennials, Gen Zs, and I don't even know what the next one is coming up. I should know, right?
Yeah. So I would say that if you're trying to reach millennials, there's a fair split between Facebook and Instagram. That's generally speaking where most millennials are present. And even there's a trend within my generation to say, I don't really care for Facebook anymore. It's more Instagram. A small subset will be present on Twitter, but that's kind of an outlier. Instagram and Facebook tend to be the major social media places that if you want to market or advertise, that's the best place. They are spending a lot of time. We are spending a lot of time on YouTube, on average at least an hour a day. Right. And so like YouTube is still a very important place for content, but it's less valuable for when it comes to marketing.
Right.
Now, where are the Gen Zs spending time? They're not on Facebook. Many of them don't even own accounts anymore.
They think their grandparents are on Facebook.
And they're not wrong. So they don't want to be in a space where it's dominated by older people. So where are they populated? Instagram is one of the most consistent ones. One of the rising stars right now is a platform called TikTok.
Oh yes.
TikTok is another video platform. It was very similar. Well, not super similar. It's very similar to what Vine used to be, where it was like 6-second videos. TikToks are a little bit longer, and that's kind of where people are present right now. But
there's sort of an Instagram feel to it as well.
A little bit, yeah. There's a sharing component, there's a commenting component, but usually it's more like short kind of clips in a very like meme style, so they're very kind of lighthearted and joking. It's not really a place that people go to learn as much as it is a place to be engaged and entertained and things like that. But with that said, Gen Z is still taking YouTube by storm. And so all the metrics indicate that YouTube will be around for quite some time.
Okay.
That this up and coming generation, they literally say that they cannot live without YouTube.
Wow.
And so if you're trying to reach millennials and below, YouTube is the place to go still. Even when you see toddlers running around, when the parents hand them the iPad to pacify them, they're on YouTube as well.
Right.
And so it really does feel like YouTube is the most future-proof platform out of all of them.
Awesome. What are some of the topics when we post online in social media? What are some of the attractive topics for young adults and even Gen Zs?
Yeah.
If you know of any.
Yeah, I think the vast majority are very interested in dating, sex, and relationships.
Okay.
If you talk about that, you can't really go wrong on the internet as far as like, will you draw a crowd or not? Mm-hmm. So that's a really good place to start. And I think that that's actually an encouraging thing. The fact that young people are wanting to learn how to do relationships better. This isn't like, oh, these kids, all they care about is sex and drugs and rock and roll. No, it's not that. It's that they're literally witnessing, maybe firsthand, what it's like to grow up in a broken family. They know what it's like to grow up in a family that's plagued with divorce or abuse or drugs, fill in the blank. And so as they're thinking about themselves growing up, they don't want to be, just another chain link in the chain link. Yeah, they don't want to be another link in the chain. They want to break that cycle. They're interested in dating and relationships in a way that will be better than what they might have been raised with. And so this is a great opportunity for us to be able to share the values and the morals that we know to be, to lead to a successful relationship. It's a great opportunity to do that. So I would say that that's one major space. And then there's this other thing where, religion might be on the decline, and that's absolutely the case. I think the number of religious nuns, not like nun, like would pray the rosary, but who would say, oh, I'm Catholic, I'm Christian, I'm Buddhist, I'm Muslim, I'm none, fill in the blank, I'm not any religious affiliation. Yeah. The rise of religious nuns is like doubled and tripled in just the last couple of years. Gen Z is far and above the most non-religious, strictly speaking, demographic ever in the United States. But while that's the case, there is an intense desire for spirituality. And I know for some of our listeners, well, what's the difference? Religion and spirituality, they go together and it's the same thing. Not to many young people, and especially not to secular-minded young people. Religion is this organization. It's rules-oriented. It's banging it down your head and shoving it down your throat. Yeah. It's just telling you what to do and what not to do. And they're very disinterested in formalized, organized religion. And that's kind of what it means when we say that. But spirituality, living a life of compassion and living a life of purpose and understanding where I fit into the world and how to treat people and all these things, like these more metaphysical questions, these questions on origin and destiny and all these things, intensely interested generation, largely because they see how religion is played out. They don't like that because it usually comes across as bigoted and judgmental and closed-minded and unintelligent. Right. Well, if I don't want that, but I still have this void in my heart where I need some kind of purpose in my life. How do I
get it? Where do I go?
Exactly. And so I would say that, content that's focused on spirituality is still intensely practical, intensely valuable right now.
Awesome. So where can a young adult start? How can a young adult start in doing digital evangelism and really shaking the world up for Christ and being a really positive change for him?
Absolutely. I would encourage them to just take inventory of their own life. What skills do you have? What are you naturally good at? For some of us, being on camera feels natural, and that is where I fit in. I think you can tell I haven't shut up yet. This is just something that comes natural to me. But what doesn't come natural is writing. I'm not a great writer, and so this is why I don't do blogs very often. Wow. And so maybe what is your skill set? Is your skill set in writing? Is it being on camera? Is it storytelling? And maybe you don't want to be on camera, but you're comfortable in front of a microphone. Well, maybe a podcast is good for you. And there's a multitude of ways to do this. Maybe you're good at graphic design. And so instead of even saying anything or writing anything,
you can meme something.
You meme something or you design something. And so there's a multitude of ways to get involved. But it all starts with, well, what has God already gifted you with?
Right.
And how, and how can you hone that skill? How can you grow it? And then where does that fit in? And beyond that, I would encourage you not to do this by yourself. Just because you only have the skill set of writing doesn't mean you can't do a great YouTube channel. What would it look like if You wrote the show, I presented it, and he filmed it.
Right.
And we all work together collectively where we all use our talents and we end up making something even better than any one of us could do by ourselves. So do an inventory. What are you good at? Build a team, dream together, and then go to work.
And I like the fact that you talk about build a team, because people congregate, they connect with friends.
Yeah.
They're not alone. Even the most shy person like myself, we still have friends.
Oh, I don't think anyone believes you when you say that.
I'm introvert.
Oh, okay.
Not extrovert. You're an extrovert.
I saw you get the hook multiple times up on stage earlier this weekend.
That's the pastor's preacher's knack, but you I'm really an introvert.
Fair enough.
But I think that is a big point to look at what really drives you. And I think for me, I think I could get better on camera. I think I'm very nervous around cameras. But it's not as natural as you are.
You got the voice for a podcast, my brother.
That's what I keep hearing.
I have a little bit of envy when I hear someone like you come on stage and you just got this deep, rich baritone, and I feel like, man, I wish I had a voice like that. But
they have a voice for radio.
There you go. At least it's not the face for radio. But that's the thing. It's like we all have a different skill. We all have a different skill set that we could use, and maybe that's an area for you. And that gives you the ability to think through what you're going to say a little bit more. You don't have to be worried about making eye contact and the visuals of all this. You can just do what you do well.
Right. I think you talk about a couple of subjects: relationships, religion versus relationship, spirituality. Sorry. What about politics? Are our Christian youth, young adults, heavy into politics? I mean, I try to read some of the comments and they get quite interesting.
Yeah. I mean, clearly there's a market for politics. I guess the question is it wise for clergy or pastors or fill in the blank to enter into that space? And that's a genuine question. Right. I think there's a lot of debate around this, and rightfully so. I would like to think that if the way we go about approaching politics is how the world does it, then we're probably going to fall short on that. Where it's a lot of politicking is mudslinging, and I just want to make you look bad so my position looks better. I think the world needs less of that, and the world could use more of two people who have differing politics sitting down to understand each other.
Right.
And showing how we can actually have these conversations about subjects that we both hold dear, but even though we see it from different angles, we have a lot in common. And so if we can stop looking at our neighbor as our enemy and love our neighbor as ourselves, I think that would be really valuable. It takes a lot of wisdom and tact and patience to do that on the internet, because as you know, when you look at the comments,
it's very scary.
It's not always great. And a lot of times the reasons why it's not always great is because the comments are being written by church people. And it's like, wow, like why would you go and say that way?
Angry church members, right?
Yes. So I mean, there's a whole lot of that, but doing it well. Is there a need for that? I think so, absolutely.
Yeah. Only because politics really speaks to making change happen, especially as it relates to young adults. A big subject that they talk about, or at least want to be involved in, or at least an activity that they want to be involved in, is social justice.
Absolutely.
And so some would say that you can't have social justice unless you have the political appeal or even the political wisdom and strength with the structures behind you to make those kinds of change in the community.
Absolutely. And we see this. Jesus was always going about social change. He was always about looking out for the underdog and helping to right wrongs. And we see this in his model. And while we see that, I don't think we can point to many, if any, instances where Jesus is
got political,
name calling and being detrimental and religious in the sense that modernly we call a religious spirit. So I think that there is a space in which we can care about these things, and it's important to care about these things, but we never let the issues matter more than the people that are directly across from us.
That's true. Awesome. So getting some people together, figuring out your niche, what drives you,
and then just get started. Yeah.
Okay, so what's the next step after that?
So I think the next step is you go to, once you get started, then the question is what you're creating working? Okay. And it's okay if it's not. Like, this is something I always try and encourage people. Failure is not a bad thing. Failure is the way that we learn many times. And you don't even have to interpret it as a failure. Just learn it as it's a learning experience. And so you create something and no one responds. Well, why? I think the response isn't to give up and to quit and just go, it's not for us. No. Like, you go back to my channel. You watch my first videos. and they are very different in quality than my most recent video. And
I could well imagine.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I look at it, I'm just like, oh my goodness, like what was I doing? But I'm intentional about leaving it there because I don't ever want to feed the narrative that I've always had everything figured out. I don't even think I have everything figured out right now. Yeah, and so like, it's okay to not know. It's okay to grow. It's okay to make mistakes and to adapt and learn over time. So as you're creating stuff, bring in people who can speak with wisdom and clarity about what you're doing. So some of the people that you could bring in is thought leaders, people who understand the subject matter maybe a little bit better than you. So if you're talking about politics, well, who's actually been in this space and who knows what's what? If you're talking about spirituality, bring on your pastor or some mentors or something along those lines. And then when it comes to execution with like the technical and the creative aspect, bring on some creative individuals who've been in the industry, who've created successful shows or fill in the blank, and then get their advice. Never be the kind of person who is unwilling to hear someone who cares about you's constructive criticism.
Right.
What does it say, like in the book of Proverbs? Faithful are the wounds of a friend, right? And I think what it's getting at is like people who truly care will be able to share with you the important message that you need to hear to improve.
Right.
And if you have a spirit that says, you know what, no, I don't want to hear anything. What I'm doing is right because no, like you will never grow. Like even the best athletes of all time, think about Kobe Bryant. He had a coach that he would listen to and trust. Maybe not all the time,
right,
but someone that was in his corner who cared.
Spoke to him in his ear, yeah.
Exactly. And so I think young people, this is a great example as to why we need the mentorship of our senior leaders. They have been down the road a little bit further than we have. They've thought out some of these things maybe a little bit more than we have. You don't have to agree with them. In fact, I would think that most of the time when I engage with some of my senior leaders, I don't always agree, but I'm always listening.
Right.
I'm always listening and I'm always weighing what they have to say. And when I find something that really resonates with truth, I'm unapologetic. I grab that thing, I apply it, and I make it better.
Awesome. Just staying technical a little bit.
Sure.
Doing social media, being a digital evangelist, do you need a website? Is it necessary? Is it worth it? Can you do without it?
Yeah, I don't think you need a website proper. Like you don't need a website that has like a million different pages. I think that's long outdated. What you need nowadays is you just need a landing page.
Okay.
So if you go to my website, justinkhoe.com, thank you for giving me an opportunity to plug that.
Awesome.
justinkhoe.com, it basically has 3 buttons. Here's button number 1 for one of my shows, I'm listening. Button 2 is my second show, which is The Move. And button 3 is, hey, book me to speak. That's all the information that my website communicates. Beyond that, all my content lives other places.
Okay.
And so that website, I literally can get finished in one afternoon with my friend who helped me design it. I didn't do it because I don't have web design skills, but it literally took us one afternoon. So it's not something I'm spending 6 months on worrying about because...
And thousands of dollars on designing.
It's super fast. It's super simple because if you're going to watch my show, well, you're going to watch it on YouTube or on Facebook or on a podcast or fill in the blank. You're not going to go to my website to do it.
Right. Okay. No, it's just, these are some of the questions I'm asking because in youth ministries, we still have a website to complete and we're wondering how much we should put on the website.
I don't think it's
and
important.
How do we bring them together?
I think what you do is you create your website with a landing page. It says events that are up and coming and then like contact me and then resources.
Okay.
And then beyond that, the major thing that you're plugging is sign up for my newsletter. And so that way you have direct access to your audience. So what happens is a website is like there's 2 ways of communication. There's push and pull. Right. A website is pull, which means that you actually can't communicate with me. I only get information when I want it.
Okay.
So which means that you really have no control over how many times you interact with your audience or not. But if you can convince me to sign up for your newsletter because your newsletter is giving me valuable information and it's adding value to my life, I sign up for it and you get to choose when you want to communicate. And I think the industry standard would be once a week, you're sending them a video, you're sending them a newsletter, you're sending them an article, and built into this newsletter is some of the events and some of the things that you're trying to communicate with your group.
Awesome. And then, of course, on the website, you still have the connectors where they can link to your Facebook or to your
Sure, yeah, at the
Instagram,
bottom, just a bunch of social buttons and things like that. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. No, these are very good questions. I mean, because as youth directors, you want to be able to reach as many youth and young adults, and sometimes you don't have the access because of privacy laws. And
I think most people don't visit your website. And like that feels bad for those of us who are in the business of creating these things. But the reality is like we just don't. Like we don't care.
Yeah.
Like I genuinely don't care. Like I have never been, that's not true. I've been to like my personal conference in Portland, Oregon, to their conference website like once because I was looking for the address to the conference. But I literally have never gone to their page for information. Not once.
Wow.
And I think that trend is the way that most people interact with it. Like if you didn't have to do it for work, how frequently would you be on the page? I think most of us, it's not very frequently. So if I want to know when the next young adult event is, I'm going to their Facebook page. I'm going to their Instagram page. I'm almost never going to their website.
Wow, awesome. So what are your next steps from here on out? Where do you go next? What's your next level that you go after all these different shows that you create for the season of 2020?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
I think that's one of the scary but like really exciting things about this journey of faith, just following where God leads. I certainly didn't have I'm listening as one of the things that I would be doing. And yet
amazing.
God gives a vision when it's time to shift, when it's time to move. He makes that clear. And I think if our heart is always in complete surrender to God, yeah, we're doing whatever you want, He'll make it clear when it's the right time. I don't know if the I'm Listening show is a 1-year project, it's a 5-year project, it's a 10-year project.
Right.
I have zero idea. And I'm okay with sitting in that tension because it makes it fun.
Wow. You're brave. No, but it is fun. It is very exhilarating. I mean, people ask me, even at the Calibrate, what's next? What comes next? You don't know.
Yeah.
You just wait for God's moving and the impression, and He speaks. He tells you what to do, and
That's right.
And you hope that the next thing that you do is just as impactful not being a word, but you get it, just as moving and impressionable as the last thing. But yeah, it's been great hanging with you and chatting with you.
Absolutely.
Social media and digital evangelism especially is something that I do want to get into.
Awesome.
And,
what would you like to see happen as the youth and young adult director? What's the vision for you? Knowing that like young people are spending on average 18 hours a day behind a screen in one way or the other, how do you intend to reach them and to empower them?
Well, since you asked, one is podcasting, and another is doing more with our YouTube channel, which what we've mostly done since I became youth director is just posting events, promoting what's coming up next. And then when we had you send a 20-second video, we did that and we uploaded it. But I think there's much more we can do with YouTube.
Absolutely.
Putting out conversations, whether it be crucial conversations, whatever you want to call them, about really key topics that affect young people in today's context. And of course, Ontario being so diverse, so we have to sort of keep it narrow and not middle of the road necessarily, but at least it can be appreciated by, these topics could be appreciated by a majority of young people, which is not always easy, of course.
Yeah.
So podcasting, upgrading our YouTube, and getting it into the hearts and minds of young people so they can feed and engage on some of those topics.
That's awesome. Could I suggest one word of advice when you're doing this?
Sure, absolutely.
Awesome. So what I've seen a lot of churches and conferences, how they treat their social media is they treat it as just a digital bulletin board.
Okay.
Hey, we have an event coming up in 2 weeks. Hey, registration's about to end. Make sure you're getting in there. Hey, invite your friend to our next event. Oh, hey, did you see the thing that we did last month? It was really cool. Here's the video about it. It's a bulletin board. It's announcements. Nearly no one follows a ministry or a page on any social media platform because of announcements.
Okay.
They follow because they're being served in some way.
You're giving them content.
Correct. And so, like, we understand this, like, ministry is all about service. It's not about getting something in return. And yet, the way that if our online presence is a bulletin board, we're giving them this content because we hope them to come. And so it's actually a selfish endeavor. If you approach your online platform with a premise, and it's an uncomfortable premise, but I think this is the starting point. If the premise is, what content would I create if they never came to any of my churches, if they never came to any of my youth events, if they never came to any of my retreats or whatever else that you do for the rest of the year, would they still be blessed? Awesome. Would they still be growing spiritually? And so what would I create in order to fulfill that thing?
Right.
So, you have a a retreat for young, single, college-age students. Great, you want to invite these people. That's powerful. That's an important thing to do. But what if no one comes to that? What series of videos, what 10 videos would you create that would still communicate the same value if they never showed up? And as you do that, then people start to trust you more and are more willing to follow you because, well, if I follow you, I'm not just getting bombarded with more advertisements, but if I follow you, I'm actually being ministered to, I'm actually being fed. And so that's the simple thing that I would encourage, that subtle shift in why are we creating what we're creating?
Right.
What does it look like? And if it's just an announcement, are we really doing our audience a service here? Now, nothing wrong with announcements. Maybe one out of every 10 uploads can be an announcement, if anything. But if it's anything more than that, pretty soon people start to tune us out.
Yeah. So subjects that impact them, some subjects that are meaningful and really bring value to them.
Absolutely.
I suppose that would be the key word, value.
Yeah.
Well, it was really great hanging out with you today.
Absolutely.
And just picking your brain on a couple of topics. And I'm happy that you were here this weekend and that you were able to give even more beyond the sessions.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
Well, a huge thank you to you and your team. You guys did an incredible job at Calibrate. I know it's only the second one that you guys have done. So if this is the starting point where it's going to end up in even just a small handful of years, very, very, very exciting. Yeah. And so what you do at the conference matters, and how you're paving this path for young people to get involved and casting that vision. I couldn't be more excited about that. So kudos to you. Keep on doing it. And any way I can support, I'd be happy to do that.
And I'm happy that you're a part to make it a reality.
Absolutely.
And God bless you in your ministry.
You too.
You're doing a powerful work.
Thank you.
Pastor Justin.
Hey, that's right. You are the only person in my life to consistently give me this title. I think, and I receive it with gratitude. And we've had this conversation already. Like,
I don't know. I've always thought that you were a pastor.
I'm not a pastor.
You're an online pastor.
And in reality, like, that's the function and that's the role of what it is. And yet I never went to school for that. I don't have my credentials. I've never been ordained. That's actually not entirely true. You know how you can go online and sign up to be a minister so you can conduct a wedding in like 3 minutes, pay like $30 and boom, you're ordained online. So I am ordained in that respect, but that was just to help my friends out and conduct a wedding service. Right. But strictly speaking, I'm not a minister. I'm not ordained. I never did theology school. And so when you say that, I consider it an honor.
Maybe I should change and call you evangelist.
That I have done before.
Whichever, you're still sharing the word and you're still bringing value to people's lives, and you are changing people's lives for the kingdom of God, and that's Amen. A good thing. Amen. God bless you.
You too.
All right.